Yeah, okay. You're good. All right, Kelly. All right, Kelly.
Kelly belongs here too.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god.
All right.
Ready?
All right, everyone. Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
All right.
Hi, thank you.
I'm gonna try my best to talk as loud as I can because there is no microphone. But hello, everyone. Welcome to Web Design Decal. I'm Kelly. I'm one of the co-instructors this semester. We'll be doing a little more introductions later on during the lecture. But thank you all for coming out to the lecture today. I know I sent out a lot of emails in the past week. I will go over everything as the slides go on. But yeah, I just want to first off, thank you guys all for coming out. Yeah, let's get into it. Oh God, how do I work this?
Unmute. All right. You could just
Do I
tap.
just click tap? Sorry,
Over.
technical.
Okay, now just use arrow keys, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Anyways, you all are gonna do amazing things. You all got accepted. We read your applications, and we're just really excited that you guys chose to start your little like adventure and journey into web design with us. So yeah, why should you be excited for this class? We're giving you the tools to create a website such as this. This is one of our previous from past years. I want to say like 2021. Sean Park, he is a senior product designer at Discord, as it says. This is an example of a personal portfolio that could be your final project. You can turn something like Wikipedia's very, I don't know how to say it, but like 2000s energy-esque, like Times New Romans thing, or maybe 61B's, not to say ugly, but sorry, don't want to offend anyone, but you know, this is very just basic, but you know, you can turn something like this into something like this. This is our web design decal page. We've maybe some of you guys even found us through this website, and yeah, here are some other examples of some previous student portfolios. Just yeah, and if people are trickling in, just try to find an empty seat. We are at capacity, and yeah, it's a little hot here. Sorry, guys. But yeah, this is an example of a student portfolio. This is actually one of our TAs, final project from last semester. We created a little tea time page, very cute. But yeah, so if you're really interested in creating cool websites like these, I'm glad you guys chose to join our decal. So what will you be learning in this course? In the first week, we'll be teaching you guys HTML. So today's lecture, Evan will be covering all the basics you need to know for HTML. We'll also go more into depth throughout the weeks, but for the most part, all the basics you'll need to know will be taught today. For week 2 to 6, we'll teach you a lot of CSS, which is more of the styling behind websites. We'll get more into that later as well. And week 7 to 11 will be more on JavaScript, how to make a website interactive. As for the design section, because we are like web design, week 1 we'll be talking about a little about fundamentals. Week 2 to 6, user interfaces, and week 7 to 11 is exploration. Hi guys, welcome in. There's a few seats in the front. We are at capacity, so yeah, I think there's like one, few here. Yeah. So let's get into some introductions. Who are we? So my name is Kelly. I'm a sophomore studying CS and minor in data science and music. And this will be my first time instructing what it is head instructor, but I was previously a TA last semester.
Hey guys, I'm Evan. I'm a junior studying CS. I'm also a co-instructor here. Again, first year or first semester teaching this, but I was also a TA last semester with Kelly.
And we have a lovely team of TAs this semester, so I'm just gonna let them introduce themselves. So we can go like, I don't know, this way.
Hi guys, I'm Sufal. I'm a junior studying mechanical engineering in CS, and I'll be a TA this semester.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris. I'm a junior studying comp sci and minoring in bioengineering, and I'm going to be a TA this semester as well.
Are you guys first? This is your first semester on staff?
Yeah, first semester on staff.
Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Brian. I'm a junior studying computer science, and it's my second time TAing this course. And I took it spring 21, I believe.
Hi, I'm David. I'm a sophomore studying CS, and this is my first time TAing.
Hi, my name's Grace. I'm a freshman studying cog sci, and I took the decal last semester, and this is my first time doing it.
Hi, I'm Steven. This is my fourth semester on staff. I taught it last semester, so I'm kind of old. So yeah, excited to be here.
Anyways, this is our lovely team of TAs, and you can get to know them better when you guys come to our labs, which I will get into a little bit in our next slide. So course logistics. Hi there. We have a few seats in the front. Thank you for coming. Anyways, course logistics. So I'm sure you guys are aware, we have two sections of this course where we have labs and lectures. On Mondays, 7 to 8, we'll be meeting in Moffett 145, which it's not on this floor. It's like Moffett, it's like floor 1, but you guys have to go through like a different route than how you got here. Sorry, it's a little confusing. Moffett is weird. We didn't choose the rooms, we were just given the rooms. So yeah, Moffett 145 is for our labs on Mondays, 7 to 8. And then Thursdays, well, you guys all made it here. Congrats. Moffett 102, 6:30 to 8 p.m. So during labs, we'll be doing activities such as like working on lab assignments where we will be building websites, design sprints, etc. And for Thursdays, we have our lectures, which you guys are all in now. We have a split programming and design section. And yeah, we are a 2-unit decal. If you guys aren't aware, it's just pass, no pass. You guys will not be getting a letter grade for this.
There's a seat down here if you want to come down.
As for assignments, homework and lab assignments are almost every week. We have one midterm project and one final project. Homework assignments are worth 4 points, released on Thursdays at 8 p.m. So right after the after lecture, you can find it on our Notion student portal, and it'll be due the following Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. The only exception will be for homework for this week's, which we'll get more into later. And lab assignments are released Mondays right when lab starts and will be due the following when the next lab starts. As for late assignments, we do understand we are all our students. We've been there. Things get rough, midterm season, all that stuff. Homeworks and labs that are submitted late will receive up to 50% of the original score you would have gotten. If you submit any late homeworks and labs, please email your TA that will be emailing you all the enrollment stuff tomorrow that you've submitted late. And otherwise, we'll not be grading your submissions past the deadline. For Monday labs, like I previously, I'm going to walk you through it. It's basically a partial lab walkthrough. We won't go through the entire thing, but we'll get you guys started with the tools you guys will need to finish the lab. And we'll also be doing a mini content review from the previous lecture from like the previous week. So as for next week's Monday lab, we'll be going over the content covered in today's lecture. These will not be recorded because these are not, the attendance is not required. However, we do highly recommend you guys to come out because it's a great way to get to know people in the decal you're taking. We'll be, you guys can also ask questions to TAs and just meet other people. As with lectures, basically, like I said, half coding, half design. And a new thing we'll be adding this semester is we'll have 6 mandatory attendances throughout the semester, which is part of your grade in order to pass. Lectures will be recorded though. It's not like if you guys can't make it, we want to make sure you guys can still learn the content. You can find us on youtube.com/user/whatitalive. We'll try to post our webcast by the next day, but we can't always guarantee it. Sometimes our lectures go really long. It takes like forever to upload on YouTube, but we do highly encourage you guys to try to come out to all the lectures if you can, just because we teach better when there are people engaged with us. Here's the grading breakdown. There are 100 points that you can earn with some possible like sections for extra credit. You need to earn at least 70 to pass, as well as attend 6 in-person lectures. The breakdown is 32 homeworks, 32 points of homework, 8 points of labs, 6 points of attendance, 22 points for the midterm, and then 32 of the final project. Also, I know I'm going through this pretty fast. There's just a lot of stuff to cover today, but the slides will be posted after today's lecture, so you can always go back and review it. As for communication, our 3 main points will be on ed. I hope you guys have all enrolled in the ed by this point. I've sent it in multiple emails, but if you guys haven't, please do so by the end of this lecture. Ask conceptual questions about homework/labs to staff. You can also ask logistical questions, and we'll try to answer within the next 12 to 24 hours. As for the Notion, there's a student portal that will be posting all the lecture slides on, as well as where you'll be accessing and downloading your homework and lab assignments. And then GitHub, that's where you'll be submitting your assignment through your GitHub website, which Evan will talk more about in the setup later. And this is our ed. Basically, in a lot of CS classes and a lot of other classes, I feel like this is a very like common forum for discussion. So yeah, always keep an eye out if you ever have questions. Sometimes people ask the questions that you're thinking. Yeah. We also have office hours, which I know people are like, office hours for decal. Trust me, you guys will be coming to it. It gets pretty full sometimes. Just let us know ahead of time. Just let us know ahead of time if you are planning on coming. So we do know and we do expect you. All of the office hour stuff will be posted by next week on Monday. We're still trying to finalize all of our schedules, but these will be reoccurring every week, just as long as you email us ahead of time. But yeah, we really do encourage you guys to come out to live lectures, labs, and OH. You got in for a reason, and we'd love to meet everyone and have a one-on-one conversation with you. The effort you put in will directly reflect on your grade. And some ethics. Don't only scare you if you're unethical. So just don't be unethical. So certain resources are prohibited in our decal, Twitter Bootstrap, Foundation, Semantic UI, basically any HTML template site. These are not allowed because we want you guys to be able to be equipped with the resources and tools to build your own website from scratch. Homework, so there's no outside resources allowed. As for projects, while no HTML and CSS resources are allowed, there will be JavaScript libraries allowed, which you guys can also find out more about later. We don't have to get into it right now. Yeah, ethics. Considering the following case studies, it's going to be a little interactive moment. You guys are going to have to interact with me. Person A copy pastes sections of code from a website. This is not good. All right. Person B has some experience and submitted a website. Be creative for the class. What do you guys think? Is this good or not good? Yeah, I see the head shaking. I agree. Not good. And our last situation, person C writes a front-end code from scratch and submits their own work. Is this good? Slay. Yay. Very good. Awesome. You guys get it. I don't want to get into much nitty-gritty, but yeah, we don't want to punish you guys. Like, we have no choice to fail you and report you if you do, but we don't want to be mean. So please don't make us be mean. Thanks. Anyways, let's now get into enrollment. I know many of you guys have been emailing me about enrollments, so I will explain to you guys and try to be transparent about the situation. There were a few miscalculations on our side for the people we gave acceptances to and for the people we thought would actually enroll based on previous semesters. We are really, really happy to see like this entire room filled in Moffitt, but due to the room and enrollment constraints, as you can see, we are literally at capacity. And we have more people signed up right now than we can actually enroll on Cal Central. That's just due to the room booking with only 82 people being max enrolled or like fitting in Moffitt. And yeah, we want this class to be a fun and collaborative experience for everyone, which also means, given our constraints right now, we do want to prioritize people who can make it to all of the lectures. So this semester, I don't know if any of you guys have heard about our previous semesters, but we'll be changing our attendance requirement to at least 6 live lectures across the course of the semester, which I mentioned previously. And we'll be keeping track of all your attendance today through our attendance form, which will be at the end of every lecture, and we'll have like a little secret code. And yeah, so at the end of today's lecture, once you guys fill out the attendance form, we will send out an email to all of the people who filled out that attendance form and ask you guys to fill out another Google form, which I know there's a lot of Google forms. This will be the last one. This last Google form will confirm your spot so that you can send that, so that we as TAs can send you the enrollment code tomorrow afternoon so you guys can enroll on Cal Central. Yeah, we really do apologize for any for the miscalculations and possible confusion for our end. We created this course to make web design more accessible to all students, not just CS majors and not just like people with a lot of programming background. If we had it our way, we would be able to accept all of you guys and even more, but it unfortunately with like our policies and just things out of our control, we just can't do that. So we really want to encourage you guys, if this attendance policy doesn't work for you, to reapply in a future semester and mark this down in your application. We'll also be posting all of our lecture recordings on the YouTube, all the slides and assignments on our Notion page, as well as our Ed forum, and we'll also be opening OH to everyone, not just like students that are enrolled. So yeah, the only difference if you want to audit this course is that you won't be receiving units, but you can still receive the same help and same amount of resources as if you were enrolled. Yeah, thank you guys all for coming today again for your attendance. That will be at the end, but yeah, just want to talk about that. Adding and dropping the class, I know there's like a lot of add and drop deadlines that have been like passed or like coming up. As far as I'm aware, the add deadline is tomorrow before midnight. So we will be sending out those enrollment codes if you're planning on enrolling in the decal. And you just have to enroll in that by tomorrow if you don't want tomorrow, like before midnight. If you guys don't want to pay the fee. And then drop deadlines, I know the early drop deadline was already passed, but there is a late drop deadline. There's just like a $5 fee, I want to say, but we can't really help you if you miss a deadline. And if you do end up like just wanting to audit this course or like dropping the class for any particular reason, just email us and we'll let you know what to do next. But yeah, now we will get into the fun nitty-gritty stuff of the actual portion of the content of this lecture. So the first thing that we need you guys to do, if you guys don't have it already, is download VS Code or any other text editor, depending on what device that you guys have, whether it's like Mac, Windows, whatever not. Just download the correct version for your device, and we'll get started in a few minutes.
Oh, I see. Here, you want? Maybe we could click on this and see where it takes us.
The issue is it's not. I
Oh, what's
wasn't
that?
sure never mind. I wasn't sure if it was gonna.
Yeah, I have no Wi-Fi here. This should be the first link that pops up if you search VS Code download. But if you want to be like super sure, like you can copy this verbatim in your at the top. What does that say? I can't even see it. Code.visualstudio.com. Yeah. And then and make sure you download the appropriate or the one that's right for your OS. There's so many sites. I was running it through.
That's why
I was like doing a
99 sites.
it's 101 now.
Or
Because I added a
Oh,
few.
yeah.
Did you count it?
No, but there's people who email this.
Yeah, there's people who like,
This is a 9x9.
oh, you can do math. That's crazy. That's insane. All right, hopefully you guys got it. Is anyone having issues downloading it? Okay, cool. I'll just move on then. That can just happen in the background. Okay. Cool. All right, so today we're gonna start with HTML. You guys may or may not have heard of it. That's okay. But before we even get into like the coding portion of this, we're just gonna talk about like generally the structure of websites and then kind of get more granular as we go on. So a few tools you guys might use throughout this course or just in web development and in general is a web browser. You guys have all used it. You probably literally just used it, like Chrome or Safari. You guys mostly use this for like looking stuff up or like rendering websites. In this class, that's what we're going to do. It's going to basically display your code and show like what a user would see if they were to open what you've created. We're going to use a code editor as well. You guys just downloaded Visual Studio Code or just VS Code for short. This will be where you interact with the files that you edit and kind of make those changes. Don't worry, if it seems like super unfamiliar, that's okay. It does take a bit of time to get used to. But the one nice thing about using a code editor is that it displays like the text really pretty, and it also will be super interactive when you make changes. So it doesn't feel like it's just like a dead document. And then prototyping. This is basically like what I would consider is like an online or like a digital sketchbook of the websites you guys will eventually create. This will allow you to kind of like put your ideas and like test them before actually implementing them with code. It just saves you a lot of time doing this rather than like coding something up and then realizing you don't like how it works or looks. So those are the main three like categories of tools we'll be using. Here's just like a table of contents of what we'll go through today. Again, the first three is just very introductory web page knowledge, and then the next two will kind of help you get into like the first homework. Okay, yeah. So first, we'll talk about the structure of websites. You guys have all used websites, but it's essentially a set of web pages, and you access them with a single domain. And a web page is like a document. Again, HTML. It's usually written in HTML. And a domain is an address, for example, our website here, that represents a server where the files will be located. You don't have to actually like know all of this terminology or like memorize it. It's just like good context. So here's an analogy that we kind of use. It's pretty straightforward. It's like pretty one-to-one, but like if you were to search in Google Maps fire station, for example, it might direct you to a very specific fire station with a very specific address. From a high level perspective, this is very similar to what like a website is, or like how those addresses connect to them. And so, for example, if we were to search a web address like this, you can just enter it in the search bar of your browser, and it'll route you to an IP address, and then that'll direct you to where you can like fetch all the files. Okay. And this looks really scary, but like we'll just like pass this for a second. This is all the code that could be written for a website. This doesn't like actually show up on the website, but it tells the computer like what you want displayed. That's about it. And once that file is fetched, it could display something such as this. Oh, and fun fact, this is actually the code. I don't know if it's outdated, but this was at one point the code for our website. Okay, you guys have maybe heard of this terminology before, but generally speaking, there are two sides of a website. There's the front end and the back end. The front end is kind of what users can see and interact with. This is what's like displayed and things you can like click. Whereas the back end is kind of behind the scenes, things like user data, anything that you don't actually interact with, but it has to be stored somewhere. That's all in the back end. I think a pretty accurate way of thinking about it is like for theater, the actors, everything that the audience can see on stage is like front end. Everything behind the scenes, like tech, sound, that's all back end. Okay. So the websites we'll be creating, and what most websites are actually made of, are these three components here. We have HTML, which we will talk more in detail today, and there's CSS and JavaScript. HTML is very much just like bare bones, like skeleton code. And this is where you tell this is what informs the web page of what content you want displayed, but has very little to do with like the actual formatting of it. It's very much just like, this is the text I want. These are the images I want displayed. That's about it. And there's like some organization that happens there. CSS, however, is like where you can style things, where you can change the colors, the fonts, you can enlarge or like, change the size up of images. This is where the websites will actually look aesthetically pleasing. But even with those two, you don't really have anything that your website can't like interact. You can't interact with the website. And so JavaScript comes in, and as the icon kind of suggests, it's like the muscle of your website. It allows users to activate like drop-down menus, or like if you click a button, maybe something will happen. But just as like a skeleton can't move without muscles, like your websites won't be able to interact without JavaScript. That's about it. So yeah, I already said this, but HTML is very like just bare bones structure of the page. And it will define and include things like text, links, and images. And fun fact, HTML is short for hypertext markup language. You will not be tested on that ever. And so here's another example of an HTML file actually pulled from our website. And as you can see, just to like get us familiar with how like the things we can identify in an HTML file, we'll see these little like opening and closing brackets. This is something common in any HTML file. We'll see text between like the first and second of these little like what we'll call tags, but more on that later. Okay. So just really briefly, again, we said CSS provides the design of a page, and it'll define rules for the appearance of content. CSS is short for cascading style sheets. And this is what an example CSS file might look like. Again, this looks very different from what you just saw. But basically, we might like indicate, oh, maybe things referred to as body will be styled with these like specifications, or maybe things that relate to A, which we'll look at later. Maybe we want to change the color or the text decoration. Okay, let's move on. And then JavaScript provides a functionality. Again, I already mentioned this drop-down menus, tabs, anything where we need the web page to react to our like interaction. And this is what a JavaScript file might look like. Trust me, this is like way later in the course, so don't be like intimidated by this. We'll just move past it. So website folder might look something like this with multiple HTML files, multiple JavaScript files, like a CSS file here, and maybe some images. Something like this would be for a bigger project, but our first homework will look very like rudimentary. It'll just have a single HTML file. So just imagine like a simplified version of this. Okay, so moving on to the structure of a single web page, and just as a refresher, a website is a set or collection of multiple web pages, but we'll just look at a single web page here, specifically in the HTML. So right, again, we said HTML stands for hypertext markup language. Hypertext is just like fancy for text that has like links or maybe like links to other text or files. Markup is just, it's just like a formatted bit of text. That's about it though. But pretty much the naming convention we have for like our main text file is index.html. So throughout all, like most projects you'll see, that is like what is common amongst them, index.html. That's kind of your starting point. That's like your home base, essentially. And then an HTML file will look like anything you've just seen, and you can edit it with the text editor that hopefully has downloaded on your computer. And you can open HTML files on a web browser to see the results, which is something you guys may have not done. But yeah, in summary, an HTML file is just a collection of tags, a term we will further explore, and a collection of tags related to each other in sort of like a parent-child relationship. Yeah, that might seem weird, but the diagram here of nesting dolls will be relevant in just a sec. Okay, so just a little bit on tags. We saw that tags come in pairs for the most part. There's usually an opening tag and a closing tag, right? Indicated by these like little brackets right here, right? And a closing tag will always start with this like /. So you might be wondering what this text means, like why strong? You may have seen div earlier or a. Basically, this indicates the type of tag we're using, and each tag is associated with certain like styling features or formats. But for the most part, this is something that is very like particular to the specific tag. And then within your opening and closing tags will usually be some sort of text. And this text will be rendered on your web page when you open up that HTML file. Pretty much you want to think of anything that is enclosed by two tags or by a pair of tags will take on the characteristics of said tag. Just keep that in mind. And yeah, these are the building blocks of HTML, usually come in pairs. Okay, so this is a more like simplified anatomy of an HTML document, and we can see its corresponding like what the web page would render on the right. So let's just kind of like break it down. Let's start here. So at the very top, oh, by the way, with code, you can just read top to bottom, left to right. It's pretty straightforward there. So this thing here, doc type HTML, is just telling the browser when you open an HTML file that this is an HTML file and it contains HTML. That's all it is. This is something you just have to add at the beginning, not much more after that. You'll see here that we have an opening and closing HTML tag or a pair where everything that you want like displayed will go within. Again, this actually doesn't affect the style. It's just letting the browser know we're using HTML. Okay, now let's get into this. If you see there is a head section and a body section. Everything within the head contains just like pertinent information for the browser to know like, okay, what do I want the title to be? Or like little information that doesn't actually, that the user doesn't see necessarily, but is important for the browser to know. Again, we'll specify later how this is related to CSS and JavaScript files, but today our main focus is HTML. Looking at, oh, sorry. And then within that, like we said, the title tag just kind of specifies text that shows on the tab of a web browser. For example, the title for this like slide that I'm using is up here. That's what the title tag will like change. Okay, moving on. So in the body, this is kind of where, this is like the meat of the document. This is where everything that you want displayed will be specified. And ooh, we'll go in. Okay. And so within that, we'll return to this little thing right here. But first we have our opening and closing tags of key. This is something we might look at. And the text that we want displayed is welcome to Whatida. And sure enough, it's displayed on the web page. Cool. This one is interesting. We also are specifying an image. You might notice the one thing that is different about this is there's only a single tag. Images, there are a few other things, are one of those exceptions to the rule where you don't have like an opening and a closing. You just have it there and you specify what image you want displayed. And so you can kind of see the correspondence between what we have written in HTML and what gets displayed on the web page. Okay, lines that look like this with this formatting with the opening bracket, I don't have to say everything, but you can just kind of read it. Everything within these two like little borders is considered a comment. Comments in code are there to be displayed in the file, but when it comes to actually reading the file and when the browser is trying to figure out what to display, it completely ignores it. So you might be wondering what's the point of it? It's kind of your place to like leave little notes so you can remind yourself maybe, oh, I wanted to do this thing, or this is what this is trying to do, but I can't get it to. Comments are really useful because it's a way to keep all your like previous work like still there without it actually affecting what your website looks like. Just good coding practice to use comments. So just a checkpoint, we're more than, I'm actually not going to say halfway, but do you have any questions on anything? We can just like return to any slides that you wanted some like clarification on. Yeah, what's up? Right, okay, so this right here, well, let me actually just go back. Okay, so right here, this whole section is considered our head section, right? And that's like demarcated by an opening and a closing tag, right? So the closing tag is where you'll have that / and that's just like a convention. Yeah. Do you have any other questions? Yeah, what's up?
What if you actually reference the image where we upload the image where we reference in the code?
That actually will be covered towards the end. Yes, thank you for bringing that up though. We'll go over like how to like, yeah, exactly, the file paths that you'll use, what a file path is, and then we'll get into some examples. Any other questions? Okay. And also if you think of something later and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to ask, just say it and then we can come back. Okay, but moving forward, just onto the last or second to last thing here, the HTML tags, just to give you some introduction on what you might use. Here are some like basic forms of content in a document. You might want to indicate some paragraph text. And maybe within that, you might want to like make it bold or italicized. You might want to make headings that are like larger than your standard text. You might want to include links. Maybe you want to make like bulleted lists such as this one. And you might want to include images. So these are just some examples of things you might want to put in a very like basic web page. And this is all something that HTML can handle that you don't really need CSS for just yet. So for example, we have some paragraph of text indicated by your opening and closing paragraph tags. And that's just like a lowercase p. Sorry, I was like circling it here. Right here. And then maybe you have your second paragraph of text. And notice you might be asking, well, why didn't I just put all of this text within just a single pair of opening and closing tags? And maybe you wanted some like separation between the two. And that's what HTML will handle pretty nicely. Yeah, and P is just short for paragraph. Okay, bold and italic text, again, characteristic opening and closing tags. That's the last time I'll mention that. Maybe we want bold text, so within that comes out like this, or italic text comes out like this. Strong refers to bold, EM just short for emphasize. Here's one cool thing. Like we mentioned before, HTML is very much like based on like the nesting or the relationships between these tags. And so if we see everything in here is enclosed by the strong tags, which we recall make things bold, but only the word different is enclosed in the italic tags or the M tags. If we notice, everything in here should be bold, but only different should also be italicized. And that's exactly the result that's produced. So here's a cool example of like nesting to like selectively apply certain characteristics. Just a quick introduction to headings. H1 or lowercase h followed by a number will create a heading. And as the number increases, the heading size decreases. So that's cool if you want to do like subheadings. That's about it though. I don't know, Kelly, you know if it goes past H6? No? Okay, 1 to 6. I mean, you don't need more than like 6 different sizes of headings anyway, so. Okay, and then onto links. Links look kind of weird. I'm sorry, this is like formatted weird, but you can also just read this in a single line. This like next line here is not necessary, just a formatting issue. So then we specify it with this. We have our A with our closing A tag, but you'll notice within the first tag, your opening tag, you also have href with a URL. That's essentially telling the browser whatever text you have here, when clicked on, will link you to this URL. So that's kind of the way of like encoding, like when I click on this link, this is where it takes me. And that's just how you format it. You just put it within the opening tag. And make sure you have the space between here. Otherwise, it'll read that as like something completely different. And so, yeah, if you wanted to take it to YouTube, for example, you would have everything exactly the same, except you would just change this to route to youtube.com. Okay. I think we just have one more after this. Lists are also an interesting one. You open them with UL, which stands for unordered list. And every individual item that you want to have like a bullet for has to be enclosed by its own individual LI tags. So for example, if you were not, let's say, you put everything within a single pair of LI and you like omitted these two and these two, it would all show up in a single bullet. So it's important to separate them by including individual pairs of each LI tag. That's about it. And then images we did see earlier are the exception to the rule. There's only one tag. It's not a pair. Make sure you have the slash at the end. And SRC here in this context is like short for source. Again, telling the web browser where it should find the image. More on that later. But yeah, so maybe, for example, the HTML document lives in some folder, and that's where this Apple image lies. Or maybe you're trying to reference an image that exists on the internet, and you might need to include the URL here and then go further into that. One little thing that we'll see later is these forward slashes in the context of in the context of like files indicates a folder. So every time you include a forward slash, that means you're like entering a new folder. Yeah. Moving on. Do we have any questions here? We're not done with this, by the way. We'll go more in detail on like how to grab like file paths. Okay. Moving on then. Okay, yeah, just a quick check to see where we're at. So I won't just like ask you, let's actually give some context to this. So we do see that there is this tag here, the A, which represents a link. Okay, and we see where it goes to. And then within the opening or embedded within the like opening and closing tags, we have an image and we have, something specified there. Do we have any guesses of what this might be trying to do? Yeah. Oh, actually, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So this is something we didn't actually see in a previous HTML file, but again, the nesting rules still apply. That's exactly right. So you click on the image and it'll take you to our website. Cool. Yeah, so far what we've seen are very like specific tags with very specific characteristics attached to them. Sometimes you don't always want that. So HTML luckily has a very convenient generic tag to structure our content. And that generic tag, you might spot it, it's right here, div. Anything enclosed in div has like no additional style. You can enclose a div within a div within a div, and no matter how much of like how many layers of that you have, it won't change the appearance of the content. So the purpose of using a div tag, your like empty meaningless box, is it allows you to divide the page content into like a better structure, and you can group things accordingly. You might still not really see the use of it now because it seems like pretty pointless. But once we introduce CSS and you are trying to select certain like groups of content that you want to have styled, divs will be extremely useful. Yeah, divs are everything in HTML. And yeah, so in summary, HTML structures your content. That's it. So yeah, some tags like M or H1, they do come with visual formatting, which is like maybe cool. But these defaults are very like basic and not really pretty and are very like inflexible. And yeah, and it's very like specific to the browser. So maybe like Google Chrome might use Times New Roman, but maybe like Internet Explorer uses like Arial. Don't like fact check me on that. That's probably wrong. But yeah, next week we'll throw in some CSS so we can actually change the appearance. And yeah, I will drive this point home one last time. HTML is not for visual formatting. It's only for putting text and images into meaningful chunks. So that's why our divs are important. It's for later. Just trust the process. And then the last thing, file paths. Okay, so what we've noticed is like the most common issue on our first homework is like adding images. And the main problem is the image doesn't show up. It's not just that the image doesn't show up. It might show up when you render the page on your machine or on your computer. But once we try to grade it and we're trying to access it from our computers, we don't see an image. So let's kind of like investigate why that's the case. So for images and links alike, you need to specify where the image or link, where the image is or where you want the link to go. Maybe if the image is on your laptop, you type something like this. This is a pretty like standard file path. I'm not sure what OS this is actually, but within maybe the users folder, you click into your user, right? And then that folder contains a pictures folder. And within the pictures folder, you have the image that you want to display. And so you might pull up your HTML file on your browser and everything looks fine. You submit the homework and then the image doesn't show up. I'm actually just not gonna ask. The reason is the internet doesn't really have the access to the picture because the file path has been like hard coded to a specific laptop, right? I think it's pretty like straightforward why, for security reasons, why like someone on the internet shouldn't be able to access your like files directly. But that's like the reasoning behind this issue. So instead, let's follow this file structure here. Okay, so this is like a pretty typical structure for like homework. So just to like follow along so we understand what's happening, blue indicates a folder, red indicates a file. The indents represent like how far deep we are in a certain folder. Anything on the same level is in the same folder or same like level, sorry. So if we look into this homework 1 folder, we see that it contains 2 things. It contains our HTML file, again, index.html, very standard. And it also contains an images folder, okay? If we go into the images folder, so like notice that little indent, we have 2 images here. So now if we were to submit this homework 1 folder as a complete single package, now there's a way for the HTML file to reference the image without it being specific to your computer. Because essentially what you're doing is you're taking this package that not only includes instructions, your HTML, it also includes the assets, your images. So when you send this package off to the internet and it just like stays there, anyone can access this. The previous problem was that you probably sent the HTML file and held onto the image yourself, right? So that's kind of like the analogy there. So yes, to think about how we would go from the index.html to this dog, image right here as an example. So let's see, what do we want to do? We want to go into the images folder and then into the dog. Cool. Or into the dog image. So if we have the image tag right here, we will just specify within quotations. Quotations are important. Images and then / indicating that you're entering the folder, and then the image itself. Yeah, so pretty much you can take the homework 1 folder and move it wherever you want, but all the contents within it retain its structure. So that's pretty cool. Do we have any questions before we move on? Is there anything that's like unclear? Like if you want to try out a hot hypothetical, like what if the dog like image was outside of the folder? Do you have anything like that? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah. So that's actually, yeah, a good point. So if the dog image wasn't in the images folder and we still use this file path, the image wouldn't show up. So you have to make sure the file path is correct. That's about it. Okay. Oh, and just a quick note, it's case sensitive. Double check your capitalization. This won't work if this is what you're trying to reference. Okay. And just a brief thing on organization for project workspace. Oh, I added this quick, actually. Let's just go for it. So your project workspace might look something like this. Okay. So just so we all know how we're supposed to interpret this, the indents are the same as like how we did before. So like this little triangle symbol, that's a folder. These things are like files. So everything on this one vertical line exists in the same folder. And if you go inward 1 by 1 indent, you've like entered the folder. So for example, we have the assets folder where all like your resources will go. Things that don't really like, not that they don't change, but yeah, this is just where you put your like resources. Within the assets folder, you might contain an images folder. This is where you just throw all your images. You might have a scripts folder. That's where your JavaScript files lie. A styles folder where your CSS files are. So that lies all within this single assets folder. You kind of see how that like follows up, like lines up. Okay, cool. Outside of this, so very separate folder from the assets folder, we have the otters folder. There's also folder and directory are like interchangeable terms, roughly speaking, in this course. So if you read directory, you can imagine it as a folder on your computer. Okay. So yeah, so maybe we want to store our HTML files within the otters folder, separate from these things so they don't get like mixed up. And then the very last thing, just standing on its own. Oh, sorry, was there a question? Oh, I didn't see it, my bad.
When you're referencing folders and directories, like actually different, or even like an asterisk or something.
I don't think it ever appears in the course. Yeah, I think I think verbally it's easier to just say folder. Directory is like syllable heavy. Yeah, okay. And then yeah, and then the index.html file is just kind of on its own and can like access all these things. Cool. Okay, so there are 2 things we're going to talk about here: relative paths and absolute paths. And so a relative path, as the name suggests, will tell you where to find another file relative to the current file, right? So going back here, actually, no, we can just see it going forward. And it could point to different files depending on the current location. And some examples are right here. Like we saw earlier, maybe we could jump into the assets folder, jump into the images folder within that, and then access the image. There's this, like, you might see this dot or 2 dots. The dot actually doesn't mean anything. It just means like you're starting where you are. So these 2 are like functionally equivalent. The 2 dots, however, is the equivalent of like jumping backwards 1. So maybe your index file is too far in a folder and you're trying to like go outward a little to access something else. You can also do that as well if you just stack these like dots. So 2 dots is outward 1. If you were to do another 2 dots after that, before the assets, you go out 1 again. So basically what I'm trying to say here is like there's a lot of like freedom in how you can like move around in these like folders. And then absolute paths are like complete paths to a file. And since it's not relative, it will always point to the same exact file. I don't know if I don't think this actually will cause any issues if you choose one or the other. But for example, one thing you might see is an absolute path would be maybe you're accessing this URL right here. And then within this URL, you can like go into the assets folder and images folder. And yeah, that's about it. Oh, cool. Yeah. So terminology here, parent directory is like the folder outside. That's it. Okay. So let's say we are in our index.html file and we're trying to write the relative path to this image right here. Well, I guess it already has it written, but the file path we could use is because we're already starting in the same directory. I guess I'll just say directory. Because we're in the same directory, we can just immediately reference assets without having to say anything else. And then /, so we're entering, we go into the images folder, and then / again, and then otter. And so that would be an example of how you might access an image that lies within the same workspace as your HTML file. We'll look at more examples. Or actually, well, here's like a one-to-one little correspondence here. Don't get like tripped up by the direction of the arrows. It's just like we didn't have space. But yeah, so the first thing here corresponds to jumping into this folder and so on and so forth. Okay. So let's say now that thing that I mentioned earlier, the HTML file is trying to get something here, but it has to jump outward one because it can't just like jump straight through folders. This is where the 2 dots will be like useful. Now it allows us to jump outward into the otters folder and then into the assets, images, and then otter, same as before. Just a quick distinction. The reason we have to do that ... for this one and not the index folder, sorry, the index file is because this already existed within the same like directory, whereas this one was like one deeper. Do you see that? Okay. Yeah, and then the numbers, sure. Okay, we're almost, I think we're pretty much done for like content. We're just gonna get into like some basic setup things and then like send you guys off. But yeah, coding does not have to be scary. I think a big part of this is just keeping your HTML organized. Sorry, you guys probably don't know what that means. Just like follow the indented lines. Your code editor should do that automatically for you. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, VS Code does that. Yeah, that's why we use VS Code. Does the heavy lifting for you. And yeah, so that the indents were there for you to like visually understand like how the nesting worked. If they were all to the left, it would be a nightmare. One other thing is, this is for like when you start with the homework, make sure you're refreshing your web page often. You can like write something and just refresh, or sorry, write something, save the file, then refresh. Maybe I'll add that to the slides. But yeah, this is something that you can do to like work like step by step. And then at any point, if something doesn't look the way you expect, usually it's like a really minor syntax error that can be resolved really quickly. Just check your spelling, check the tags. Also, the code editor is good at like spotting syntax errors. So it should also like point you to where you need to look. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll get into homework submissions. Oh, that was it for content. Do we have any questions on anything? Yeah.
In terms of the class breakdown, how much is going to focus on like I guess CSS, HTML, and Java, and then like on top of that, are we really learning like complex separate animations and like just on websites, or is it like just the basic stuff?
I'd say like a bit of both of what you just mentioned. Because like a lot of these like technologies are like new, or not new, but like maybe you guys haven't worked with before. We do spend some time like really taking the time to like introduce and like build the fundamentals. But because the course is structured such that we have half coding and half design, we want to like encourage everyone to like pursue like a little more advanced designs and like touch on the topics that we do go over. So animations, I'm not sure if you're referring to like CSS animations. Is that what you mean?
Like, let's say you were like scrolling on a landing page and like going to cards first.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that is definitely within the scope of like what we'll teach. So it kind of comes later in the course once we like are solid on the HTML and solid with just like working with these things. But once you like, I think a little before the halfway point is where you can just like like just go off and just like experiment. Yeah. We will definitely get into like more. So we actually didn't display it in the first few slides, but some of those websites are like incredible. Like you can, the interactivity is like definitely there, and you'll have the tools to create it for sure. So getting into the homework submission part, this is also in the Notion, which you should be added to. But yeah, this will contain all the instructions on setting it up. Yeah, I'll just like pull it up really quickly. I'm not going to actually go through it because it is quite a read. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to use GitHub and some things are not, so that's fine. And so just follow these instructions like directly, and make sure you're reading the ones that correspond to your like OS, because this setup, actually, I apologize for Windows users. This is very geared towards Mac. But there's plenty of documentation online, so the internet is your friend. Yeah. Anyway, so sorry.
We will try to get a Windows version set up. One of our TAs has a Windows, so we're getting that up soon.
Yeah. Windows love. Nice. So basically, yeah, we're gonna use Git to do this. I think just like a very high level introduction of what GitHub is, or like what Git is. It's a version control system. That sounds complicated, but you guys have worked with it before. If you've ever used like Google Docs and you want to like undo something or check your editing history, this does that, except for files in general. So it's like common for like software engineers to use. And it's good to like be able to like check like the state of a file after you made some edits. For the purposes of our class, you don't actually have to like do this jumping back and forth. Essentially what you're doing is you'll make changes to your file, you'll save those changes, you'll ship them to Git, and then now we can see those changes live. So that's all it is. And so that's how we're considering homework to be submitted, is that you'll have your own like repository of files that you'll constantly be updating and that we'll have access to. So as soon as you update it, we can check it and be like, oh, they submitted their homework. So that's kind of like how we're doing things. Just as a really quick thing, because I know some people had issues with this last semester. How do I do this? Let's see. So for Mac, we're going to use terminal, or Git uses terminal. So right here, I have it in my bar, but most people probably don't have it here. Instead, I hope I don't have anything like sus. Okay, we have, if we open up your Finder, no, guys, come on, let's be real. So if you go into your, oh God, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Oh shoot. Okay, let's go into applications. Yeah, so I have some nice applications. There is like a hidden folder. I say hidden because no one touches it. But if you go into your applications, you go into utilities, you scroll all the way down, boom, terminal. So terminal, you might feel like a hacker when you look at it because it's like so like bare bones, but open it and follow. That's like the terminal we're going to refer to in these instructions. So it says somewhere, it like mentions you'll be using Git through your computer's terminal. And so that's the terminal we're referring to. Just feel free to open it. You won't like destroy your computer, I promise. That's about it on that. Yeah, again, we don't really have the time to go through this. So good luck.
You can come to our office hours if you run into any bugs, which tends to happen in the first few weeks. We do definitely understand that. So yeah, our office hours will be posted, like I said, on our ed with all the Zoom links by next Monday.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so definitely come through for those. And so just, did you already say this? The 2 weeks? Oh yeah, okay. So because we anticipate a lot of issues with the setup portion, just because that's like the most like yikes part of this, we're giving you guys 2 weeks for homework for one. Moving forward though, you'll have a homeworks will be due at the beginning of lecture on a weekly basis. So this is just an exception, so we can like kind of acclimate to this course. That's about it. Let's move forward. And yeah, so just as a concrete date, it's due Thursday, February 16th at 6:30. And yeah, the homework will just cover like basic syntax of HTML. Everything you need will be in the slides. So that's kind of why we had that policy of don't look about anything for homeworks, because the idea is we should be giving you everything that's necessary within the slides. It should be there. And yeah, it'll guide you through making your first website, which will look very rudimentary, but you will continue to build on this. And again, this will be on the Notion. And yes, once you guys add yourselves to the ed, just like feel free to ask any questions through there. And so here's kind of just like a one-stop shop of like what you need to do after we leave. Add yourself to the course on there's only one H here. We'll fix that in a sec. Add yourselves to the Notion, and then you guys probably already installed it. Complete your setup instructions before you do anything. You can't like proceed without having your GitHub set up. And then yeah, homework's due in 2 weeks. Yeah, and that's it for today.